This is Mac OS Ken.
Analysts weigh worries ahead of Apple earnings, happenings and goings-on for Apple in China, and a look at the opening weekend for Killers of the Flower Moon. It is Tuesday, the 24th of October, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. Go to greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK for 60% off plus free shipping. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCan. One Apple bull is a bit worried about next week's earnings report, while one sort of tepid analyst thinks things have already gotten as bad as they'll get. Apple reports earnings for the September quarter and fiscal year 2023 in a little over a week, next Thursday, the 2nd of November. Heading into that, MarketWatch has a couple of Apple analysts weighing in. On the bullish side, Monness, Crespi, Hart & Company analyst Brian White sees a lot stacked against Apple right now. In our view, reads his note, the combination of a downtrodden economy plagued by pernicious inflation, an emboldened Huawei, a new iPhone family with only incremental updates, and the maturity of the smartphone market paint a bleak picture for iPhone trends. According to MarketWatch, White thinks all of that will lead to an uninspiring iPhone 15 cycle. Throw in continued regulatory scrutiny of Apple and its partners and escalating geopolitical tensions, and White worries that the darkest days of this downturn are ahead of us. I'll bet he's fun at parties. Despite his apparent despondence, Senor Blanco has a buy rating on Apple shares. TipRanks lists his price target on the shares as $208. Taking us partway through the looking glass is B of A analyst Wamsi Mohan. While he expects the broader macro to ding Apple's bottom line, he really thinks it's gotten as bad as it's gonna for the Cupertino company. Quoting his note, in our opinion, revenue and earnings estimates, which declined earlier this year, have likely bottomed out, and we do not expect further major negative revisions, barring a major recession. Mr. Mohan has a neutral rating on Apple shares. Funny story, he has also got a price target of $208 on those shares, according to TipRanks. A sort of bothersome story from the South China Morning Post this week. According to the headline, Apple iPhone 15 already being discounted on Chinese e-commerce sites in run-up to Double 11 Sales Festival. According to the piece, Apple's new iPhone 15 series is already subject to steep discounts on Chinese e-commerce websites in the run-up to the year's Double 11 online sales extravaganza, with the iconic smartphone up against stiff competition from Huawei Technologies' Mate 60 Pro 5G handset. Sounds like bad news, right? Well, hang on. The same South China Morning Post posts as the discounts come in the build-up to China's Double 11 Global Sales Festival, also known as Singles Day, which falls on the 11th of November each year, during which domestic e-commerce giants will compete to offer the best price guarantees to woo Chinese consumers amid economic headwinds. The piece leans hard on the Mate 60 news. It also references a recent note from Jefferies analyst Edison Lee, one of two stories last week that made me want to throw my computer into the ocean and turn either to a practice of monastic contemplation or a life of crime. Here in the States, Apple products have been loss leaders for Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals for years. Maybe that's a new thing for 11/11, or maybe the South China Morning Post just knows a good click generator when it sees one. Maybe iPhone sales are actually in trouble, though a note last week from Morgan Stanley said perceived weakness for iPhone in China was tied more to supply chain issues than weakening demand. It is at least as likely that online supersellers in China are using lower prices for iPhone to generate clicks and sales of their own. Foxconn has attracted a critical eye in China. Ars Technica cites a report from the Global Times that says the Chinese government is investigating the contract manufacturer, Apple partner, and China's largest private employer over tax and land use. Actually, rather than saying China's largest private employer, it might be more to the point to say the largest private employer in China. Foxconn is a Taiwanese firm, which may explain the investigation. Terry Gao is Foxconn's founder and former chairman. While he resigned his seat on Foxconn's board earlier this year, he still owns 12.5% of the company. Also, he's running for president of Taiwan, a land over which China claims dominion. According to the report, the Global Times article quoted an expert saying Taiwan-funded enterprises, including Foxconn, should also assume corresponding social responsibilities and play a positive role in promoting the peaceful development of cross-strait relations. Ars Technica goes on to say Beijing has in the past targeted local subsidiaries of Taiwanese companies with regulatory probes and political pressures at sensitive or tense times. China officials frequently urge Taiwanese companies to help promote peaceful development between the two sides. For its part, Foxconn is towing the line on China. On the reported investigations, Ars quotes Foxconn as saying, "Complying with laws and regulations is a basic principle for the group worldwide. We will actively cooperate with the relevant authorities' operations." Coincidentally? Question mark? The Wall Street Journal ran a long piece Monday about Apple's increasing reliance on China-based manufacturing partner Luxshare. Along with other Apple contractors, the report says Luxshare manufactures AirPods, the Apple Watch, and the recently released iPhone 15, including the top-of-the-line iPhone Pro Max. Luxshare is also the assembler of Apple's first mixed reality headset, due to reach consumers next year. The piece is about one-third how difficult it is for Apple to walk away from China, half inspirational story of Luxshare's founders, and 1/6 how tough it is for contract manufacturers to turn a profit. The story is interesting. It is available on Apple News if you want to check it out. While the world frets over Huawei and Foxconn and what sale prices on one of the hottest phones in the world on a competitive shopping day could possibly mean, Apple keeps doing what it does, clearing the way to sell more stuff to more people. Apple Insider says the Cupertino company is set to launch its next store in China in just under 2 weeks. According to the piece, Apple will open the Apple Mix C Wenzhou storefront on the 4th of November at 10 a.m. local time. It'll be Apple's first location in the city of Wenzhou, its fourth in the Zhejiang province, and its 46th in mainland China. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. If you've tried HelloFresh, you get the idea. Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh, bringing you a bigger selection of meal plans from which to choose. Green Chef makes eating well easy, with plans to fit every lifestyle. That's keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or people just looking to eat more balanced meals. I was really into the hot honey kale and prosciutto grain bowls I had from Green Chef. For me, honey is something that goes on things, not in a lunch or dinner. And mixing it with red pepper flakes? Never would have tried it on my own, and it was amazing. Feel your best this fall with seasonal recipes, certified organic fruits and vegetables, and great proteins. And they run the range, from dinners ready in 25 minutes or less, to 10-minute lunches, to grab-and-go lunches and snacks. Go to greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK to get 60% off plus free shipping. That's greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK to get 60% off plus free shipping. Even if eating clean is not a concern, I seriously think you will love your Green Chef meals. Use code 60MOK to get 60% off plus free shipping at greenchef.com/60MOK. If you have a HomePod and listen to YouTube music, this is your chocolate in my peanut butter moment. A piece from Engadget says YouTube Music is now available natively on HomePod, meaning you can ask Apple's virtual assistant to play tracks from the service, even if your iPhone, iPad, or Apple Watch are not close by. Additionally, the piece says users can also set YouTube Music as the default music service for the HomePod. That means you, or they, won't have to say, "Play that embarrassing song I love so much on YouTube Music." They, or you, can just say, "Play that embarrassing song I love so much." YouTube Music joins a small list of third-party music services with native HomePod support. They include Deezer, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and TuneIn Radio. Engadget says Spotify users can ask HomePod to play that funky music, but no native support. The report says Spotify only works with an iPhone nearby, as requests and audio are routed through AirPlay. And finally today, the Apple Originals Martin Scorsese flick Killers of the Flower Moon kinda crushed it at the box office over the weekend. Emphasis on kind of. A piece from Variety says the film took in $23 million from just over 3,600 North American theaters, with another $21 million from 63 international territories. That adds up to a global total of $44 million, enough for second place. I'm not a Swiftie, but I do like Taylor Swift. She is a talented writer and performer, and she ruined my viewing of Killers of the Flower Moon. That's not because her concert film, Eras Tour, took first place for the weekend. I don't really care about that. No, it ruined my viewing because the concert film was playing in the two theaters on either side of the theater in which I saw the Scorsese pick. Killers of the Flower Moon is a slow, deliberate, largely quiet film. And the volume on the two screens showing the Eras Tour was so loud, you'd have thought Taylor Swift herself was in both of the theaters on either side. Maybe pay attention to what's playing near the theater you're going to if you're going. Thing is, there's no way to know before you go. The good news is they gave me a free ticket to any theater in the chain to make up for the less than stellar arrangement. I was apparently not the first person to complain. My plan, see the movie again at a different theater, because it was really good. 2 hours in, I wondered how they were going to fill the last hour and a half. Turns out when I wondered that, we were actually 3 hours and 15 minutes into the movie. The acting was sensational. The sets and wardrobe were, I don't even know how to describe them. I mean, they were spot on. They were authentic. They were amazing. And the sound from the next theater. Hey Hollywood, in case you're wondering, this is the kind of thing that leads a lot of people to wait for streaming. Back to business. Despite its second place finish, Variety says Killers is easily the best start for Scorsese since 2010's Shutter Island, which had a $41 million debut, and the third best of his career, following the 2006 film The Departed, which debuted at $26.9 million. Two things were working against this film. The first was the SAG-AFTRA strike, which kept the film's stars from going on the usual promotional spree. And the second, an army of Swifties that are going to go deaf if they don't turn that music down. What's weird is how happy the industry seems to be with a $23 million take in the States, especially for a movie that cost over $200 million to make. But this industry isn't the same business. Quoting Variety one more time, streaming services like Apple have different metrics for success compared to traditional theatrical players. They don't place as much emphasis on box office, instead viewing ticket sales as a way to bolster the film's profile before it lands on streaming. You didn't ask, but I will say, if you plan to see this movie, see it on the big screen if you can. Scorsese's a guy who knows how to fill it and when to not. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Green Chef. Go to greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK for 60% off plus free shipping. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.